everybody. I hope you're all having a good day. And thank you, Claudia, for the introduction, and thanks again to Loretta for all the technology making this possible. So yeah, I will be talking about growing vegetables from seed today. A couple caveats. I'm going to be focusing mostly on tomatoes, peppers because that's sort of, first of all, because I'm more interested in growing those. And secondly, a lot of vegetables that you grow from seed, it's just a very simple process. You know, you put the seed in the ground, you add water, and the thing sprouts up. But when you're talking about growing vegetables or peppers, it's a bit more complicated. And so that's what I'm going to go through today. And what I hope to impart with this presentation are answers to the following 5 questions. First of all, why? You know, why in the world would you want to grow vegetables from seed? The second is when. When do you start planting the seeds? When do you stop? The third is what. What ingredients do you need from start to finish? The fourth is how. How do you do it? And I'll be going through like 10 steps that I've identified that work for me. And then the fifth is who. Who do you reach out to for more information? Okay, so starting with why grow vegetables or herbs from seed. I mean, obviously it's a lot easier and quicker if you just go to the grocery store and buy your vegetables. But there's a few reasons I've come up with. First is cost savings. If you go to a retail store like Home Depot or Lowe's, you know, you're going to spend $4 to $5 per plant. You can do it a little bit more cheaply by going to some place like Earthbox than buying seedlings, but that's still $2 to $3. When you plant vegetables, tomatoes, peppers from seed, it basically works out to about 5 to 10 cents per plant. And Loretta, this is the old presentation. It's not the updated one you have here, by the way. But
I think I missed a slide. Sorry.
Okay, well, we'll make do. Another reason to grow vegetables from seed is greater variety. There's over 10,000 tomato varieties right now in the world, including 3,000 heirloom tomatoes in cultivation. These are seeds that have been passed down from generation to generation. But if you go into, you know, Home Depot or Lowe's to buy seeds, you'll be lucky to find only about maybe 10 varieties of tomatoes. So much greater variety and more interesting types of tomatoes if you start from seed. And then the third reason that to grow vegetables from seed is just for fun. It's, you know, call me crazy, but I really love, like, you know, putting the seeds in the dirt and then seeing the little plants sprout and sort of tending them as they grow up. It's, I guess they're substitute children. That sounds weird, but anyway, and especially this time of year, you know, why not grow them? We're all sort of kind of stuck. Oh, Loretta, you. Anyway, we're all sort of stuck inside. So it's a good time to do it. Okay, moving on to the second question, when to plant. For those of you who have moved down here from the north, you've already learned that it's completely different down here in Florida. I like to equate the growing season here with the federal fiscal year calendar. As Claudia mentioned, I worked for the government for 30 years, and so this is just sort of ingrained in my mind. But anyway, if you look at the fiscal calendar, October is a great time to start planting from seed. I started my seedlings in September, and it was still pretty hot, and I had to like really baby them. If you start them now, you know, it's cooler. You're not going to have to worry quite so much about them getting heat stroke or, yeah. So start now. If you start now, you should be able to basically plant them in the garden, say by end of November. But you can start anywhere October through January. You could start your seeds as late as January and still have time to harvest your produce before the summer months hit. So this is, yeah, and then in the summer, June through August, I just take a break. There are some vegetables you can grow like okra, but why bother? Next. And if you go to the University of Florida's Institute for Agricultural Studies website, I'll give that website on the back at the end of the presentation. But they have a lot of great information, including a vegetable growing calendar. And this just gives you some ideas about what they're recommending to plant in October, November, and December. And there's a lot of repeat, including for tomatoes and peppers. You know, you can start your tomatoes and peppers now. You can start them in November. You can start them in December. But there are some vegetables that are more suited to colder climates, such as kale and lettuce. So better to start those, I would say, in November rather than right now. Next. Okay, what do you need to grow vegetables from seed? I've identified about 7 components that work for me. The first are seeds, obviously, and I will go into a little bit more detail next on those. The second is soil, and I'm also going to talk a little bit more about soil. The third, you need something to start your seeds in. It can be a starter tray, it can be an egg carton, or leftover yogurt containers. Nothing fancy, just something to start the seed in. You're going to need labels. You don't want to forget what you planted. I've done that several times before. Not good. You're going to want small 3-inch pots. And later in the process, you're going to want regular garden soil. And then finally, some fertilizer. I like Osmocote, but any organic fertilizer works. So starting with seeds, a lot of different considerations. First is where to buy the seeds. Again, you can go into Home Depot and Lowe's and you can find a whole array of vegetable seeds, and those work fine. But you can also go online and order seeds. I tend to like going online because, again, you can get just much more variety, more interesting types. And my favorite sites for ordering seeds are Seed Savers Exchange and Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. And I'll give you the link to those at the end of the presentation. But yeah, the catalog it's fascinating to look at all the variety of heirloom tomatoes you can choose from. You want to think when purchasing seeds about what varieties do well here. And that's another good thing about the Seed Saver Exchange and Southern Exposure. They will tell you what plants do best in this climate. You also want to look at the expiration dates on the seed packages. Obviously, you want to buy the newest seeds possible, so you wouldn't want to buy expired seeds. Go for anything that expires this year, 2020, or better, 2021. You want to look at the germination rate, and for tomatoes in particular, the germination rates on seed packages seem to vary anywhere from 80% to 95%. Obviously, the higher the germination rate, the better chance your seed's going to germinate. So probably best to go for the higher percentage if you can. If you're in a hurry to get tomatoes, there are some varieties that might be ready within 2 months. Others, it's more like 2.5, 3 months. So yeah, you want to look at the days from planting to harvest, and that'll be on the seed packet. Some seed packets will also have a thing called VFN resistant. And that stands for verticillium wilt, fusarium, and nematodes, which I have found, especially with nematodes, are very problematic here in Florida. I had one good crop of tomatoes in my garden, and that was the last time. The last 3 years, the nematodes have, I still get a few tomatoes, but really significantly reduced harvest. You also want to look at flavor and appearance. For example, I myself am not a big fan of cherry tomatoes, so I don't grow a lot of those. But you want to think about marketability too, and if you're growing plants for a plant sale, cherry tomatoes do well here and they sell well here. Getting back to the expiration date on seeds, you can keep your seeds from year to year if you put them in like a Ziploc bag and put them in the refrigerator. I've been using seeds from 2018, and for the most part, they're still working. I did have one mishap this year. Moving on to soil. The key thing with soil is you want it to be very light and airy. There should be a high content of perlite and vermiculite, and which enables the roots, you know, this keeps the soil loose and enables the roots to make their way through the soil. And you want to make sure there's minimal wood chips. If you buy regular garden soil, go back, please. If you buy regular garden soil, you will find all kinds of little wood chips and twigs. You want something much lighter and smoother for starting seeds. So there is actually seed starting soil you can buy at any of the big box stores. You can also buy these little Jiffy one and all kits where they have the pods. All you have to do is add water, drop the seed in, put the cover, and 3 or 4 days later they should germinate. So personally, I really like this SunGrow Professional Growing Mix. That's what the Master Gardener program uses. And you can buy, almost 3 cubic feet at Southern Ag or Big Earth. It's expensive. It's $14, but it's a lot of soil, and I've had really good luck with it. It has a few chips that you might have to pull out, but overall, it's been great in terms of my efforts to start seeds. Next. Okay, let's go through the various steps. First of all, you've got your soil. You want to add water to the soil until it's very evenly moist. You don't want super soggy soil. That will probably, your seed could just rot and mold away. So lightly damp is the way to go. Once you've got your soil ready, and I usually mix my soil in like 5-gallon containers, it's just easier to work with. Once you've got your soil ready, you then want to put the soil in the starter tray. And as I mentioned, with starter trays, it can be very low tech, like the egg carton, eggshells. Or what I did is a few years ago, I bought these starter trays, the middle slide, online. And it includes the tray, the cup, and a cover. And this has worked really well for me. It's the same concept of the whole Jiffy all-in-one kit, but these are reusable. Next. Step 3 is actual planting. Once you've got your soil in the cups, you want to make a real shallow indentation in the center of the cup. And the indentation should be no deeper than 1 to 2 times the diameter of the seed. If you make it too deep, the plant will either take forever to sprout up, or the seed will just rot away before it has a chance to sprout. So yeah, 1 to 2 times the diameter of the seed. And I usually, depending on the germination rate, I usually put between 2 to 3 seeds in each indentation, and then cover it very lightly with a fine layer of soil. Make sure you don't have any wood chips covering your seed area. The next step is to label your trays. Again, I have made several mistakes in which I forgot to label my trays and couldn't for the life of me remember what tomatoes were which trays, were associated with which trays. So label your trays, put the cover on, and then set it aside in a warm and protected area. That'll end for about 4 to 5 days. Next slide. And here's my starters on day 5. Happy birthday. So you'll see I actually have like 4 little plants coming out of 1 cup. I overdid it there. But there's the plants, and the next step you want to do is remove the plastic tray cover. I say this from experience too. I went away for a few days. I left my husband in charge of my newly sprouted seeds. He left the cover on, and they all baked. They all died. So take that cover off before you put the tray in the sun. Since I started in September, I was very, very careful with my plants. I only exposed them to sunlight early in the morning, 2.5 to 3 hours, and then later in the afternoon. Now, in October, it's cooler, so you may not have to worry quite so much. But if it's hot, you really don't want those plants out in the midday sun. Only mad dogs and Englishmen, not tomatoes. And what I do too is I have a very cheap grow light that I hook up, and especially on cloudy or rainy days, you can put the new starts under the grow light, and that'll really give them a boost, or just put them under there overnight, and it really does work. You want the grow light about 6 inches from the plants. It really seems to help them. And obviously, keep the soil moist during the day. You don't want your little seed cups to dry out. Step 7, about 10 days later, is to thin out the plants. I usually start with the tallest, gangliest one and get rid of that, because the shorter ones, some of the taller ones, they got too tall because they didn't get enough light early on. So get rid of those tall ones, leave the short ones, and winnow it down to 1 plant per cup. And if you have some cups where nothing germinated, you can just add another seed in there, and another 5 days from now, that cup should be full. Step 8 is about 2 weeks into the process. You want to transplant your seedlings into 3-inch pots. And when do you want to transplant? Well, you want to make sure the plant has at least 3 to 4 sets of leaves, and the stems are roughly 3 to 4 inches tall. And what I do is, very carefully with a tablespoon, I'll just kind of scoop out the plant from the tray and add it into the pot, which I've already put a little bit of dirt in the bottom of the pot. I gently put the plant in the pot and then add, again, very gently, some more dirt and kind of softly pack it down. And again, when you're using the dirt for the transplanting into the pots, you want that soil to be evenly moist as well. And I usually add a little bit of fertilizer at this point too. You don't want to add too much, because it's too much stress on the baby plants. But just a little bit of Osmocote or something into the mix, I think, helps. And again, remember to label your plants. Step 9 is keeping the plants alive. In September, I was watering twice a day, early in the morning before I put them out in the sun, and then early in the afternoon before I put them out in the sun again. You want to make sure your plants have, again, 6 hours of sunlight. And if it's really hot, give them a midday siesta from 12 to 3. You may not need to do that if you start now, but definitely the ones I started in September, I was moving them all over my driveway depending on where the sun and the shade was. A little crazy. Final step is transplanting the seedlings into the garden, and most should be ready within about 1 month. You'll know they're ready to be in the garden when the stem is about pencil thickness. You can plant them in a garden, of course. You can also use an earth box or a large pot, whatever you prefer. If you are putting it in a garden plot, it's probably a good idea to have the soil tested. I just tested my soil. You can go to the Master Gardener Plant Clinic Extension Office in Palmetto, and I think they charge $5 to test your soil. You want to make sure your soil pH is between 5.5 and 7. Around 6 is optimal. So I found mine was closer to 7, so I'm going to add quite a bit of organic material to my my garden plot, before I put more tomatoes in. And obviously, read the directions on the seed packet, space the plants the recommended distance apart, 2 to 3 feet for tomatoes. You just want to make sure there's good airflow and sunlight getting to the whole plant. And then I fertilize periodically every 2 or 3 weeks or so. And it's also important, of course, to scout for pests, which is a whole nother topic here in Florida. But that's basically what my process. And as I mentioned, here are some additional resources, who to call if you have any questions. You can call the Manatee County Master Gardener Plant Clinic. They're open, I think now, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Normally it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, but with the COVID thing going on, they're down to 2 days a week. And you can also find tons of great information on the UFL IFAS website, including the Florida Vegetable Growing Guide, the South Florida Gardening Calendar, and they have a really good publication on herbs as well if you want to grow basil, rosemary. And then I mentioned the seed websites that I get my seeds from, Seed Saver Exchange, and then Southern Exposure Seed Exchange. And that's it. I have one more slide, I think. Oh, there we go. So Claudia mentioned we got the plant sale tomorrow. We will be selling the tomatoes, peppers, basil, and rosemary that I've been working on. And the tomatoes are going to be $5, and the other The other stuff is 3 for $10. So hope to see you all there. Please buy my plants.
You might mention that this has been recorded, so if you want to
Okay.
go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions?
Okay, what we'd like you to do now is, if you see at the bottom of your screen, there's Ask a Question. If you click on it, you can type in any question you might have. If someone's already asked a question you like, you can click on the number and it will put the questions to the top that more people want to hear about. And so we have at least one question there. I'll shrink this down and there we go. Let's see. One question is, what are the best peppers to grow in Florida?
I've had mixed results. I think jalapenos grow well, but I'm not a big spicy person. I've had good results with my bell peppers. Last year, I tried to grow, what do they call them? Poblano peppers, ancho poblano. And something got to every single one of them. So I think bell peppers are probably my best ones. But then I don't experiment with a lot of super hot peppers, so I'm not the expert.
Okay, next question. What do you do if your soil is too sandy?
If it's too sandy, you need to add a lot of organic material. So you can buy bags of cow manure. Black cow is really good. Or you can just, at Home Depot, Lowe's, you can just buy cow manure there. It's like $2 a bag. But yeah, if it's all sand, I think I just forget about it and use use an earth box. But yeah, if it's just slightly high on the pH scale, which means, high saline, high sand, whatever. Yeah, so just add organic matter. That's the best you can do.
Okay.
And compost. Compost is good, which Christine will tell us all about in December.
Okay. How do you get rid of nematodes?
Good luck trying. You can add organic material, and that's supposed to help. I've also heard that marigolds are if you plant marigolds all over your garden plot, they somehow discourage the nematodes. And then there's something you can do over the summer called soil solarization, which I've tried 2 years in a row. You just take a clear plastic, like what you'd use for painting, a clear plastic sheet, weigh it down in your garden plot with bricks or whatever, make sure it doesn't blow away, and just let the sun bake the heck out of that soil, and it will help kill the nematodes. I still, after going through all of those efforts last year, I still had issues with nematodes. So if you're really worried about nematodes, use an earth box.
Okay, what peppers and tomatoes will grow best in pots or containers?
I think if you're using an earth box or a container, I don't think it matters so much. I think whatever tomatoes or peppers you like. I haven't noticed that one brand grows better than another in containers. In the garden plot, I have noticed that cherry tomatoes do better than other tomatoes, but again, I don't like cherry tomatoes.